future trends, deep insights, industry leaders. This is the iGaming Next podcast with your host, Pierre Lindh.
This podcast is brought to you by Pragmatic Solutions, the leading iGaming PAM platform with a modular approach, including many benefits like a fast, secure, and scalable API-based platform, integrated with all major third-party products and services. Make sure you head over to Pragmatic Solutions and join our smart thinking.
Professional investor, author, and Twitter profile, Magnus Andersson. It's really nice to have you on the podcast today. How are you doing today, first of all?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's a long time coming, I must say, because I've been following you, of course, very closely here over the last couple of years, coming from the iGaming industry and following your interesting analysis, especially in regards to evolution here that you've been keeping up with in the last couple of years. And I suppose just as a starting point here, Magnus, like when did you discover evolution?
It's a little bit more than 5 years ago now. I wasn't there from the start, unfortunately, I must say. For some reason, I didn't...
Well, 5 years ago, it's pretty okay as well.
Yes, but I don't know really why I didn't notice them when they IPO'd in 2015. But an investor friend of mine started talking about them early in 2017, and of course they were a much more company back then, and really nobody in Sweden, if you weren't very interested in iGaming, I guess chances are were slim that you would have heard about evolution back then, and lots of things have changed since then, but
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting, and that's what obviously the topic of today is. We're going to stay a lot on evolution specifically here to kind of break down the company and understand better, perhaps what the future holds for the company from investment perspective. But I would like to start on a different note today, Magnus. Coming from the iGaming industry, again, that's been my career for a very long time, and when it comes to like kind of investing, like I'm very much a retail investor. I don't really know that much about investment philosophy and these type of things. I think it's fun to invest just to have a good reason to read the quarterly reports and to understand the companies better and so on. But it cannot escape me that the Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they made an interesting argument that the one of the biggest gambling companies today is not called Evolution, or it's not called the Sands or Kindred, but rather Robinhood. And Todd Haushalter, the chief product officer of Evolution, during iGaming Next back in October, he also made this argument that the biggest gambling company in the world is Coinbase or Robinhood. And obviously what they are alluding to is the fact that there is, many retail investors just like me who are day trading, but in actuality they are gambling because it's obviously very difficult to beat the stock markets. And so as a starting point here today, Magnus, I want to ask you, do you feel that most retail investors are gambling?
I would say so, that perhaps most of them are in the sense. especially since there's so many people just trying to make a quick buck, and loads and loads of people are just blindly following people who they see on Twitter and other forums. I don't know how many times people have asked me, not just of course about evolution, but any stock that I've been writing about somewhere. They come to me and they say, "Oh, should I buy this one?" you always try to tell me, "Oh, please, you must do your own analysis. I can't take any responsibility for your decisions there. But yeah, I think it's a good company. But please read up on this." And many times you see, no, they just buy it. And sometimes they come back and they are angry because this week the stock went down, which is not acceptable behavior for any stock in some people's minds. But there are many similarities, and I have a personal little experience from, 20, 25 years ago. I used to watch lots of football with my friends, and then the British company Betfair appeared there, where you could trade the odds for or against certain things to happen. And I did that quite a lot, and I was then already since long interested in the stock market. But I must say that it taught me lots of things about how volatile the markets can be, just by someone scoring early in the game, and still the odds just move very, very quickly and drastically, as if people would think that, oh, the other team has no chance whatsoever to come back now. And everything moves just like in the stock market. All of a sudden there is a memo from some company saying they perhaps will post slightly worse result than what they said before, and then stock just dives 25% in a couple of seconds. And there are many similarities between the two. But I like the stock market far more than the gambling market. I've left that part of my life behind me.
Yeah. Makes sense. And that leads a little bit to a follow-up question here. So our industry is heavily regulated in order to protect the potentially harmful gamblers who potentially have the who could be of a concern to gamble too much, of course. And the industry is heavily regulated in order to prevent this harmful gambling from occurring. It's not always perfect, but it's been the protection of the players have been getting a lot better in the last couple of years. And I think that everyone can agree that the regulation of the gambling industry is a good thing. And so my question is, do you think also, considering that there is such a big influx of retail investors into these new platforms like Robinhood and Avanza, that perhaps could have this gambling addiction gene or behavior within them, should they be protected also from day trading to some extent? Like should investing also become more regulated?
Well, I think there are lots and lots of regulations regarding how companies must behave and what they must report, and against insider trading and all such things. But now I think you cannot really keep people from losing money if they are dead set to do that. I mean, you have lots and lots of initiatives from like Avanza and other brokerage firms telling people how to be careful, how to not just put everything into one thing or try to read up on things and so on. But I mean, basically, it's very, very difficult to do something against. I mean, if you just buy some strange option with all your money and you think, oh, this will happen, and it doesn't happen, then you lose all your money. If you have borrowed money to do that, and you lose even more than you have. I mean, I don't think you can do very much about that. I mean, it's unfortunate, very unfortunate when it happens, but you should think also about the very, very positive side on investment there, where you can really, if you are careful and you know what you're doing, you can really change your circumstances. You can get ahead in life. You can have opportunities that you wouldn't have had if you just lived month by month on your wages and so on. So I mean, for the society, I think it's a huge benefit that we have so easy access to the stock market. I mean, when I started with the stock market in the 80s, when I was a teenager, then it was very, very difficult. I mean, of course, you could buy stocks, but you had to go to the bank and you had to fill in forms and you had to do whatnot in order to buy this, buy any stock and so on. If you wanted to sell it, it was very, very difficult. And insider trading was rampant in Sweden back then because the rules were very, very lax and so on. I mean, we have lots and lots of regulation now, which is a good thing, and lots of people getting sentenced for breaking all those rules. And I think it's a very healthy market, and the access to information nowadays is, of course, enormous. I mean, you can. If you put your heart and soul into it, you can get to know lots and lots of things about the company. Then, of course, you won't know it as well as people working there, of course. But I mean, you can get ahead of the market. You can get ahead of the professionals. Fund managers and so on. If you really put your heart into it, I mean, that was absolutely impossible back in the day. Then you could read the reports, of course. You could read what the newspapers wrote and so on, and perhaps you could contact the IR guy in the company, but you couldn't really do very much more than that. Now you can sit 24 hours a day and chat with your friends and trying to find out as much as possible about the company. So it's a level playing field nowadays, which is a very, very good thing, I think.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, Magnus. And there's there's been some really cool statistics and funny statistics that retail investors like myself, we actually underperform on the stock market than just the average movement on the stock market by something like 1.3%, meaning that essentially if a monkey would take decisions, he would outperform the general retail investor. And I guess the reason for that is that people like me, we buy and sell very much based on our emotions. So when the stock goes down, we panic, basically. And so my question to you, Magnus, is what does it take, in your opinion, to gain an edge on the stock market?
Well, there are several things, and I think the information is, I think it's a Gordon Gekko quote. There is a Gordon Gekko quote for everything, but I think Gordon Gekko said in Wall Street that information is the most valuable commodity that I know of. And that, as I alluded to before, I mean, getting to know the companies that you invest in before you ever think about putting your money in it, or anything, or anyway putting any meaningful amount into a stock. I mean, if you really do that, and some people, I guess, think that, you don't really have a chance compared to the real professionals, and especially in companies that have lots and lots of analyst coverage. But that is wrong, in my opinion and my experience, because when I started investing in Apple, for example, in 2011, I really tried to get to know the company as well as I could. I looked for all kinds of forums in the United States where people were discussing Apple, and I listened to all the podcasts and all the analyst conferences, everything, and I realized that I had. I mean, you can never be the best one. You can never be the one, especially not in a company like Apple or anything like it. But you don't have to be the best one. If you are in the top 10%, you have an edge to the market. Obviously, you have. I mean, if you are the top 5%, if you're the top 1% when it comes to knowledge among the 1 million or so owners of Apple, then you have an edge. I mean, that's very, very easy. But then there are other things as well, of course. I mean, there are psychological issues, of course. There, I mean, we as a species are not. We're not, of course, born investors. We're born to roam the prairie and hunt for food and things like that, and that is really a disadvantage for us, because being as we are, we run away when we are scared, because in the bad times, once a long time ago, of course, the downside was 100% if the saber-toothed tiger came running at you and you didn't run. I mean, and also you had to be very careful back then about all the surplus, all the food that you had, that it would last through the winter. And you got very, very scared, of course, and we are scared to lose what we have. But in the same time, of course, if you run away from every time you get a little bit scared, you can't succeed as an investor. I mean, and if you are always very, very afraid to lose your money, then you get. I think it was Charlie Munger. There's a quote from Charlie Munger to any investment situation
second
as
one
well, and I think he said that if you come across the opportunity of a lifetime and you only put 20% of your money in it, you're not being very rational. And I mean, if you always look at the downside, or always only think about, my God, I can lose this money and so on, then you won't be successful as an investor. I mean, and that is no problem. I mean, you can buy like a global fund or an index fund or something like that, and put 10% or 20% of your earnings. That will be great in 10 years and 20 years. You have lots and lots of money for sure. But lots of people nowadays, they want to play the stock market. They want to buy shares of companies and pick them themselves and so on. But I've always tried to argue, and I also did in the book that I published last year, that you really need to be careful there. You really need to put some time and energy into it. It's like everything else. I mean, you can't start playing golf and just walk out with a club in your hand and try to. I mean, good luck. You will notice very, very quickly that it won't be great fun playing golf, and everybody will laugh at you. And it goes for everything, really. I mean, if you're going to start driving a car, you have to practice. You have to practice in safe circumstances and get a license, and be very, very careful in the beginning. Even though you may think that you are ready to drive, there's someone else who needs to tell you that you are ready to drive. You have to be very careful the first year or so. But this is not perhaps the most popular thing to tell people when they're young and they think that, oh no, I have some money here I inherited from my grandfather, now I want to put it into play here in the stock market. But no, I mean, I shouldn't laugh about it, because I heard lots of times that people have lost money that they really, really couldn't lose, and that is of course a tragedy, and every time it happens. But if we work with ourselves and stay true to, have a good understanding of our weaknesses and our strengths and so on, and read up on the companies that we are interested in, and so on. Then we can, even though we're not professionals, we're not getting paid by someone else to do this and so on, we can be among those percentages that actually win most of the time, and overperform the indexes, because some people, they think that it's so difficult, you can't outperform the market, and I mean, that is just nonsense. You can do that, and no one would ever say that you can't underperform the market. Of course you can underperform the market, but I mean, if lots of people are underperforming markets, then it's only very easy mathematics that some people will outperform the market, and some people will do that for a very, very long time. And Yeah, but you need to invest much more than your hard-earned cash if you want to succeed, I guess.
Yeah. Let's jump into evolution specifically now. The topic of today here is interesting. So I'll start with a small story here. So I met with Todd Haushalter a while ago, the chief product officer of Evolution, and he told me a story that a while ago he was in Sweden. It was a year and a half ago, something along those lines, and he was having dinner at the restaurant. And in the middle of the dinner, someone came up to Todd and knocked on his shoulder. And Todd looked around. He didn't know what was happening. And there was this guy who basically said, I know you're Todd Haushalter. I don't want to disturb your dinner. But I just wanted to say that you have made more millionaires in Sweden than any other entity in Sweden ever. And obviously, it's true in a sense, because Evolution has had obviously a rocket trajectory on the stock market over the last couple of years here. But it ended in somewhere around May last year. Evolution peaked at around 1,700
I don't think
SEK on the stock market. For the moment, let's say. And since then, Evolution had a quite flat trajectory for a while, and it's obviously lost some of its share value and market cap over the last couple of months here. So I guess my first question to you, Magnus, is when it peaked last year of around 1,700, do you think was the share price justified at that time? And since then, obviously, it's been losing value on the stock market. And can you talk about why do you think the drawback happened from May last year, and what can we expect moving forward?
Yeah, well, it's always difficult to say whether a stock is sensibly valued or if it's overvalued and so on, because the market is, of course, always the umpire here. We can't do very much if the market starts selling a stock for some reason. But Evolution, at least in the last 3 or 4 years, has never been very okay, now I start talking about overvalued. I don't think it's been excessively valued at any time, really, because when we talk about Evolution, and I hope most of your listeners have some understanding of the company, but you have to realize that Evolution has been very, very successful for a very long time. And normally when you have companies that double, I mean, for many years it has doubled, or at least grown by about 50%. Year after year after year, and also with the margins that are always expanding, and the profits are just going through the roof, basically, year after year after year. Then in any normal circumstances, a stock like that would be valued at least 50 or 60 times its earnings, and especially when they have, they have a very nice competitive situation, and they have lots of cash on the balance sheet. They have very, very low, they have almost not borrowed any money whatsoever. And in any normal situation, that stock would be very, very highly valued. But Evolution has always been questioned first now in Sweden for many years, and then now also on a global scale now, when there are so many outside investors. I mean, nowadays Americans own the vast majority of the company, or American funds and other investors, and it's always been very, very questioned all the time. And there is a similarity to Apple, I think, here, because they, of course, were also the quality and so on leader since many, many years. I mean, everybody wanted to own the Mac, but it was so expensive. But I mean, there was rarely any question that they had the most popular products, and they could charge lots of money for their products because they were so popular. But all the time they were questioned. I mean, today no one or very few people question Apple and their staying power and their ability to make new very popular products and charge a fortune for them. But when I started investing in them in 2011 and until perhaps 2016 or 17, they were questioned all the time. If they grew very much, people said, no, you can't make money making hardware. You can't stay on top. I mean, competition is always going to catch up with you, and so on and so forth. And this has been the case also for Evolution. And I mean, I think it's great that lots of foreigners, so to speak, from a Swedish perspective, have found the company. But it also means that the discussion that we had in Sweden in 2017, 18, 19, perhaps, where people were saying, no, the competition is going to catch up with Evolution. Look at Net Entertainment here. They have some success here, and there are other companies, Playtech and so on. But that never happened. And they just grew and grew and grew, and the margins just went up. Where people say, no, you can't have an EBITDA margin in excess of 45%. It's not natural. And then it was 55, 60. Now it's 70%. Yeah. I mean, if companies always question like that, and they always have to prove every single thing, all of a sudden, I think around a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, lots and lots of interest came into Evolution. And not just Evolution, it was growth stocks all kinds of growth stocks, some of them not making any money, just losing lots of money. But all those companies went ballistic. All those stocks went ballistic in a few months there at the beginning of last year. And then Evolution just went up, and everybody here, like people like me in Sweden and in some cases from other countries, who had been waiting for a very long time to see some real appreciation there of the stock price. We just felt that, this is so justified. Now the market is finally catching up here,
understanding, yeah,
that they are the kings and so on. So we were perhaps a little bit lazy there in our analysis of the stock market, because we could feel that this was really the start of something really spectacular, and the company would be valued at perhaps 40, 50 times earning now in the future, and the earnings would grow like 40, 50% a year, and we'll make more and more money and so on. But the market really, I mean, we have different factors there. First, there was a movement, as we all have seen, away from growth and more into value stocks and that kind of thing. I think it started like last summer sometime, and then just grew and grew and grew. Yep. We had also, of course, all the talk about higher interest rates and inflation and everything, and that's not very positive for growth stocks, which have all the vast majority of their earnings is way out in the future. But then there were also some things that were rather ridiculous, I think, because, for example, the duo there, the owners, the founders of the company, they sold, I think, 12 or 13% of their huge holdings. And that was a big letdown, and the newspapers here, they wrote about this. They don't believe in the future of the company. No, they only have like 87% of their enormous holdings. Yeah. And they did this before. Yeah, they did this, I think it was 2.5 years before, but the stock had gone up 15-fold since then. And they were roundly criticized back then that they were selling, I think they sold like 30% back then of their then holdings. And everybody, they don't believe in this. And the stock just plummeted like 20% in the morning. And I mean, that was the start really for this how should I put it? this situation that we've had since then with the stock, because then it started, and then it came lots of things that also didn't have anything to do with the company, like this grey listing of Malta, because they had problems in Malta. I mean, perhaps you can say there is some connection to Evolution, which is headquartered in Malta, but I mean, really, no one could really make the case that that would influence the company. And then there was all these talk about global tax lowest tax rate for companies. If I mean, of course, that could happen. It hasn't happened really since then, but I mean, Evolution pays like 6 or 7% income tax now in Malta. Perhaps that goes up, but I mean, it's not anything that is too serious for any company that makes so much money. And then we were really on a trajectory there where people were asking or talking about things that they did wrong or so on. But I mean, the first quarter result last year was spectacular, and the second quarter result were also very good, and then it was a bit slower on the third and fourth quarter. But I mean, if any other company would grow like that, it would be sensational. But for Evolution, there are others apparently in play.
Yeah, exactly. We've been joking that Evolution doesn't even mention all-time high results in the quarterly report, because it's just a given that every quarter is all-time high.
Has been from the start. Always all-time high. I think there's one time they didn't grow quarter on quarter, like in 2017 or something like that. But otherwise, it's just growth. And I mean, the reason I think that so many other people outside of Sweden found the company is that if you have any kind of service that lets you search for certain parameters like quarter on quarter growth or just EBITDA margins or anything. I mean, they stand out, and they stand out in every category. I mean, basically no other major Swedish company grows by like 10% quarter on quarter. I mean, that's almost unheard of. And if the market doesn't like that, I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see until it wakes up again.
Yeah. How much of the kind of drawback do you think is related to ESG, Magnus? Because the short seller reports, that we can get into those as well, obviously from an ESG perspective doesn't paint Evolution as an organization in the best light. And so do you think there's an ESG element to this drawback as well?
No, I don't think there's anything new when you talk about ESG there, because in Sweden lots and lots of funds sold off Evolution years ago because they were supposedly not ESG not compliant is the wrong word, but they just decided that we don't want all of a sudden. And it's rather fun because we regulated the Swedish market from January 2019, and that coincided pretty much when all those big funds started offloading their shares, which was ridiculous because I mean, they were completely okay with owning gambling companies before they were regulated in Sweden. And then there came regulation, and they had to start paying taxes on their Swedish earnings and so on. And it's off. I think that has always been the case in some markets, especially in Sweden, but also we have this discussion in other countries also. I mean, there are lots and lots of things you can say about gambling and casinos and so on. But these reports, I think, is another story when it... I don't know if you're going to explain.
Yeah, let's jump into them because... absolutely. So essentially between May and November, there was the kind of a drawback on the stock market for the Evolution share, but the drawback wasn't really that substantial. It peaked last year at around 1,700, and the stock was floating around between 1,350 and 1,500, something like that, for quite a long time. Mm-hmm. But then obviously in November came the first short seller report, which basically accused Evolution of accepting players from state-sanctioned countries. That was kind of the headline of that short seller report. So it basically made the case that Evolution was accepting players from the likes of Iran and Syria and so on and so forth. Obviously, Evolution shot back and were very clear to the point that they are not the ones that are offering the actual gameplay. They are just a supplier to the operators who are then offering the actual gameplay, and the regulation and the due diligence happens with the operator and not with Evolution. And that was the first short seller report, which caused a lot of turmoil in the share price. And then came a second short seller report a couple of months later, which basically didn't really touch on the fact that you could access Evolution's games from so to say black markets, but it's focused rather on the fact that revenue from gray and black markets should be valued at a lower multiple than revenue from regulated markets, seeing that any gray or black market could be potentially shut off from one day to the other. So there's a higher risk profile in those revenue essentially, whereas the regulated revenue is more safe. So to say that was the sentiment of the second short seller report. And that report particularly, it made the argument that Evolution should be the share price of Evolution, if you value the gray and black market revenue, should be then the share price should be more like 600 SEK, and that caused a drawback down to like 800 SEK in the share price before it kind of bounced back a little bit, and it's floating around 1,000 to 1,300. 1,000 to 1,100 at the moment. So obviously these two short seller reports had a quite damning effect on Evolution as a whole. And I would like to ask you just what did you make of these two short seller reports, and what's your analysis of them? Was there any relevance within them? Did you learn anything new? And what did you think?
No, to start with, I think that the second report that came this year, I think we can call that a short seller report, because they had we knew who wrote it, and they could, of course, be held accountable for what they had written, and you could discuss their conclusions and so on. But the first report that you mentioned, I don't think anyone should call that a short seller report, because it gives it a credibility that it absolutely should not have. I mean, a short seller report, if it's a good one, they found things that are hidden or people haven't noticed, and they bring them forward, and they could be a very good thing, because if you make a sound judgment about the company and say that, I mean, for example, bring out different perspectives and different facts that the market don't know about. I mean, that's a legitimate report. But this first report, this anonymous report that was written, it was, I mean, it was a real hatchet job against the company. And we don't know who wrote it. There are lots and lots of rumors about this. And one of the theories is that it's a previous manager at Evolution left the company some years ago that is behind it. And there is also speculation that it could be someone, of course, who had a short interest in the stock and just wanted to really, really throw dirt at the company. And that was, I mean, I'm all for, as I say, when people put in the effort and try to find, faults in the company. But that report was filled with lies and smears and accusations that were just ridiculous in most cases. And it really pains me that so many people, not least in Sweden, but also in other countries, thought that this was some kind of objective truth that someone had. I mean, you have to think about. There are two different things. I mean, you could have the situation where a newspaper or some analyst or something digs up lots of things. They are fair. They're critical, but they are fair, and they let the company answer questions and so on. and they come up with things that really aren't good in a company. And if you have that situation, that is one situation. We have this situation that someone is just trying to throw so much dirt just to hope that some of it sticks on a company in order to gain some kind of advantage. There could be a competitor, there could be, as I said, a short seller, there could be some disgruntled employee and so on. That is a completely different situation. And I think it's only natural that companies react in different ways on these kinds of things, because Evolution was roundly criticized for their handling of this situation. But I think, if you take a little, example there, for example, if you own a bar, for example, it's called Pierre's Pub or something like that, and it's a very, very nice place, and you follow all the rules. You don't let underage people drink. You have a nice kitchen, and you close at whatever time the authorities tell you to close. And all of a sudden, your competitor down the road, who's a real bastard, he sends in some people with a hidden camera, or some children with a hidden camera. They look like they're 18, but in fact they're only 16, and they have, a false ID or anything like that, and they film this, and it looks, they don't tell anybody, of course, that they film this, and then he sends this to the newspapers, or he sends it to the local authorities, and he doesn't tell anyone that they had in fact false IDs and so on. If this happens to you, I think you can be excused if you get very, very angry and perhaps not deal with the situation. If you think, oh, I spent so much time and so much money making this nice place where I always follow the rules, I always do. The reason that I'm so popular is that I put lots of money and effort into this and so on. Whereas if you had if you were breaking the rules, if you were letting underage teenagers come and drink without checking their IDs, or if you didn't close when you were supposed to close, and the local newspaper starts digging into this, and they check it up, and they see that, oh no, Pierre is really letting people, 16-year-olds come in and get drunk in his establishment. If you get that situation, it's a completely different thing. And I was rather dissatisfied with lots of the writing after this, and lots of talk about it. It was a successful report in that fact that it really made people think that Evolution didn't follow the rules. And that's, I can understand if you don't know very much about the company, but if you do know about the company, if you met them and so on, they are dead serious in what they do, and they follow all the rules. And gray markets is just it's just a fact of the business that they are in. There are lots and lots of gray markets. There are lots and lots of countries where there aren't any rules regarding this, and then people go online and they start playing. And very basically, as you said there, it is the operator's responsibility to check this. You can make if you continue with your pub there. If Johnny Walker sells you whiskey and you start selling this to 16-year-olds, you have the problem. Johnny Walker shouldn't have the problem. They haven't done anything. They just sold to someone who has a license to sell alcohol and so on. And that is something we shouldn't forget here, because Evolution sells their services not to any player whatsoever. There is no contact whatsoever between the player. They can see, they can get information about who's playing and so on, and they can, player data and all those kinds of things, and see what people like and where they move between the games and such things. And you can also see the IP addresses of the people. But if you are very, very sophisticated and you have these tunnels, you can set up a tunnel you are in Iran or something like that, or Somalia, but you have knowledge about how to hide that. Of course you can get an account with someone else, and then you can perhaps have some kind of credit card in the other countries so that you can deposit funds and so. I mean, of course, there are some people who do this. I mean, it's not any stranger than that someone with a fake ID who looks to be 18 gets into your pub. I mean, it's not that you're not doing what you're supposed to do because the ID looked absolutely legit, and the person didn't look too young, so he or she was let into your pub. And I think it can. I mean, it's. I mean, we can all learn from these things that even though the company doesn't do anything wrong, or any company that doesn't really do anything wrong, or at least doesn't do anything seriously wrong, can get into trouble just by people saying that they are breaking. They are breaking
exactly
the rules.
No one is perfect.
If I continue with the Apple thing, you had lots of media outlets in Asia have been writing that the new iPhone isn't selling and things like that, and you get a 5% drawback on the stock. But if you're positioned and you know that this false piece will go into print at a certain hour, you can make lots and lots of money doing that. And I guess that is just the way it works nowadays. But the other report that came, that was more serious, but I think that it was. I mean, you can make any assumption regarding any company's sales and where these sales come from. You can, I mean, we had this discussion for a long time in Sweden, because Sweden, people should know that we have had the iGaming companies for 20 years in Sweden. We were very, very early there. And some of them are now very good, very big, like Kindred and so on, and Kambi and Evolution and so on. But we had lots and lots of these discussions in Sweden where the revenue came from, and supposedly very, very. I mean, I remember once I heard someone at Evolution sigh and say that, well, when we talk with analysts, sometimes it sounds like it would be better if we didn't have any Asian revenue whatsoever. I mean, it has to be a good thing that you make money in a certain market, and no one would ever no one could ever make a credible case that all of Asian revenue would just disappear in one night, because Asian revenues are from 30 different countries with completely different ideas about if this is an acceptable vice that their citizens could do if they want to, or like in China, where they say no, this is absolutely no, you get punished for doing this. I mean, there are so many different situations, and I think it's a little bit a myth also that gray market revenues are shaky or bad revenues, because there is a huge risk with this, because anybody who followed the situation in Great Britain a couple of years ago, they had been regulated since 50s or 40s or something like that, or perhaps even longer. And all of a sudden there was this window change there. The politicians wanted to combat excessive gambling and so on. All of a sudden the taxes were raised, and there were limits on, lots and lots of things. No one foresaw that, and it was more or less the oldest regulated market that there is in the world, and that was a risk. Of course, there is a risk to that also, but I think any company working in this business should have a healthy mix between them. If you have a 90% unregulated markets, that's not good, but it could also be a problem if you only go in markets where there are, some very, real regulation, then you would miss out on lots and lots of the revenues. And who wants to do that? The shareholders absolutely do not want that. You can just say goodbye to 50% of the potential revenue, and that's not the way public companies operate. Yeah. So I think that it was a ridiculous thing to say that. I don't remember if they had, 15% value to this or something like that. I mean, they had to really really come up to a very, very
it's our assumptions.
Assumptions that were really strange, because I mean, if evolution is fairly valued at 600 kronor, I mean, it's rather hard to think that there is much value in the rest of the business. Then we should just say that there are different, completely different rules than in the iGaming market compared to any other digital market there is in the world. But that's strange.
Like I heard a quite interesting sentiment here, because the second report was very much based on this assumption that regulated revenue are more safe and therefore they are worth more. But this assumption has no teeth or relevance, because if you think about it, you can easily make the argument that the gray market revenue should be valued higher than the regulated revenue. And the reason for that is, first of all, this assumption that gray market revenues they have a high risk profile because they can turn black. If we look historically on markets that have been gray, they tend to turn white rather than black. First of all, there's not many markets that go from gray to black. And secondly, as well, gray market revenue doesn't come with the tax burdens. They don't come with the unpredictable regulators. So Sweden, of course, is a great example here, where after the regulation, slowly but surely, the market has become tougher for the operators to stay active in, not as the regulation was launched, essentially. So the environment is becoming more difficult. And the same goes for UK, for example. We've seen, obviously, New York launching sports betting with a 51% tax rate. Oh, yes. Very difficult to turn profit in that state. And I don't think anyone can make the argument that in Germany, the revenues that are being generated with the 5.1% tax on the turnover should be valued higher than, let's say, revenue from Finland, which is not regulated yet. So I think there is a very strong case to be made that gray market revenue should be valued higher than regulated revenues, interestingly enough. But this is also me making assumptions here. But point in case is that this assumption from the second short seller report is it doesn't have any relevant or teeth whatsoever. So just from that sentiment, it falls apart. Nice. Right, and I think that's going to be more clear as we go forward here as well.
Yes, but it's also, I mean, it has, in many ways, it has to do with the learning curve there. I mean, in Sweden we have the hardware. We have learned the hard way how to value these companies. Or I mean, the market learned more and more better and better value the companies. But then we had all these things happening in the United States. And in many ways, that was just, it was very, very similar to what happened like 20 years ago when online casino came to Europe. Because people were not used to this at all. The analysts were very, very new to this. There was, I mean, they didn't have to bother about this because the only online casino you had was in New Jersey, and that was a very, very small thing. So, I mean, then all of a sudden you have all these European companies and also the American companies coming into this market, and it's only natural that there is lots. You have to learn a lot about. I mean, it's a very, very special market. There you can lose lots and lots of money, but you could also make huge amounts if you have an online casino, as compared to also, of course, a physical casino that isn't at all as doesn't have at all as high margins as the online casino has, for the obvious reason that I mean, everything is digital. You don't have that much staff, and I mean, the difference, of course, between the obvious difference when you have a live casino company and you have a casino is that you can have, for everything apart from blackjack, you can have, I mean, really unlimited number of people playing this roulette table that you have, or game show or whatever. And you couldn't really overestimate the difference when it comes to this, but it's also a thing that people really need to learn about, and you have to learn about realities about this business, and you have to learn about the huge differences between the companies, what they sell and what they produce and so on. And it's not that relevant how you value physical casinos, because the business is so incredibly different selling something online as compared to selling it selling this service in physical casinos. So I guess this will even out as time goes by. And right now it has been a bumpy road, I should say. But I think this will change with time, and American investors will understand better the realities of sports betting and casino. Really, it doesn't matter which one. They are very similar in many ways when you think about the online.
The interesting thing when these reports came out is that to the industry itself, internally, there was no surprises whatsoever. So, as you are saying here, Magnus, it's very much the learning curve from the investors to basically learn to ask the right questions and learn how the industry works. Because for the industry, there was absolutely no surprises here. So moving on just to the next topic, Magnus, something I'd like to discuss as well, which is interesting of Evolution, is about a year and a half ago, they made the acquisition of Net Entertainment, NetEnt, which was, from industry perspective, a quite controversial acquisition, actually, because NetEnt for a number of years had underperformed against their competitors. NetEnt used to be kind of the dominating game supplier in the early 2010s, and they had a very, very dominant market share at that time. And I used to work for Betsson Group, BetSafe, and at that time, the only two suppliers that we had were Net Entertainment, and it was Playtech, I believe, which was the second one. No, Microgaming was the second one. It was NetEnt and Microgaming. They were the only two suppliers of games to the entire Betsson Group at that time. And then came an innovation within the operators that were called the shared wallet, essentially, which basically enabled the operators to integrate as many game suppliers as they possibly could. So Betsson quickly went from having 2 contracts to 20, 30 different game studios that came into the operators. And through that time, NetEnt was not really able to capitalize on this switch, and they quickly lost market share. A lot of the top game developers left NetEnt to start their own game studios. For example, Fredrik Elmqvist, he started Yggdrasil, which is another big game studio, and so on and so forth. And so when Evolution made the acquisition of NetEnt, it seemed to the industry that there would be better options to out of the markets that had more talent and the future ahead of them, so to say. And so since the acquisition, the revenue from the RNG segment from NetEnt has been quite flat, and again during this time they have been underperforming against the market at large, and it seems very much that Evolution has everything to prove if they are able to generate this growth that they've displayed in the live segment, and display at least growth to the market expectations on the RNG side of things as well. And so my question to you is, what do you, so far, are you disappointed in the in the numbers from the RNG side of things, both from NetEnt and from Big Time Gaming since the takeover of Evolution? And what do you think investors expect as we go forward now into the following quarters when they can't use this excuse anymore that they have just acquired them, and now it's up to Evolution to steer the ship, you would imagine?
Yeah, I think we should think about the reason that they bought NetEnt, and I think the most important reason, or the overwhelming reason there, was that it was a strategic move, that they would be much more of a one-stop shop. They would have both the slots, basically. I mean, we say RNG and so on, but I mean it's the slots business, which was or still is very, very strong with NetEnt. NetEnt's problems, of course, were numerous. The main thing was that you can compete on the slot side in a completely different way as what you can do on the live part of the business. I mean, it's very, very difficult to start live studio and start, making games and have, basically a casino running around the clock as compared to making nice slots. I mean, you can just leave any company and start up your own little shop there, and lots of people did this. So, NetEnt was very, very popular among Swedish investors because the stock had a very, very nice ride. And then it started to go down because there were more and more competition. But the other thing was that they also poured lots and lots of money. I don't think they had told anyone, but what I've heard rumor-wise, it was huge amounts they put into their live offering that they tried to get off the ground there. And that, of course, had no value whatsoever, because as soon as Evolution got control of the company, they just got rid of everything. I mean, it was completely worthless. They were so far behind Evolution, so there was nothing to start with there. So, I mean, that was something that, in a way, they had to pay for this, but they also got rid of a small competitor this way. So I think strategically it was a wise move. But of course, no one has been that impressed of the growth in the RNG part there. So I think we shouldn't mix with Big Time Gaming here, because their business is very, very successful. Of course, I mean, I mean, it's almost pure profit. What did they have? Like 90%.
Like 90% EBITDA margin. Crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But that's what happens when you license out your technology to other companies. I mean, it's a great business to have, and I'm very, very impressed with this company. But I think we all would like to see better growth in the slots part of Evolution. But then again, we have to realize that this is only something like 20% of the company, and it's quarter by quarter it's losing a percentage point there or something like that. I mean, since the live business is growing so quickly, I mean, it's now back on it was for a time 60% year-on-year growth on the classic Evolution there, the live business, but now it's back on the historical average of 50%. And when that part, it's difficult to see anything other than the live part of Evolution taking a larger and larger share of the total revenues for Evolution, because I don't think we can ever imagine that the slots side would grow by 40 or 50% per year, and that's not realistic when you think about all the competition there is out there. So I would have seen more, but on the other hand, as long as the core business of Evolution, I think we should always remember that the core business of Evolution is live casino. That's what they do, really. I mean, that's where they have the vast majority of their staff are working in some capacity on, the live casino side of it, and so on. Hopefully for us as shareholders, of course, it will start to grow better. But Yeah, it's not
Because
the thing that
the
keeps me awake at night, that the slots business is not growing. What matters in
okay.
evolution is that live business is innovating and growing, and keeping
Because
ahead
the
of the competition.
sentiment I hear from time to time is how long can they keep growing the live revenue to that extent, as they've been showing it the last couple of years? Like, where is the growth going to come from eventually? Because take the United States, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very much seen as kind of the next frontier of the iGaming and online sports betting industries. Only 5 or 6 states are currently live in the United States. It's obviously a very, very costly venture, because you have to build the studios. It's a unique market in that sense, that you have to build the infrastructure in each individual state. And so they are not able to, Evolution is not able to offer the full catalog of games in each state, basically. And so the question is, where is the continued revenue from one vertical going to come from? At some point, you would think that they would kind of hit a ceiling. Is that something that you worry about?
I'm not worried that they would run into a wall or something like that. That's impossible, really, because you have so much the physical casino, the physical part of the business is still so much bigger except in countries like Sweden and north of Europe and Britain and so on. But I mean, apart from those parts, very small part of the world, the vast majority of the business is on the physical side, and this is no different than music or movies or other forms of entertainment or any other business almost in the world, that we have a movement from the physical, the old business models towards digital and online business. And this will not be a 100% going to online, but perhaps we'll have 50-50 in most countries one day. And I think it was 3% that was online now. I saw, I don't know if it's correct, but I think it was 3% of the business in the United States today is online. I mean, the chances that this would stop now and everybody would be going to these boring cardboard boxes beside the motorway in someplace. I mean, apart from Atlantic City and Las Vegas, I mean, it's not the most beautiful things. No. These casinos, it's not Monte Carlo or Baden-Baden exactly. And I think that this will just continue to move. I mean, the states will regulate one after one. I mean, perhaps half of the states or 75% of the states will one day have at least sports betting online, yes, or regulated at all, because they have had this very, very strange situation where it was illegal everywhere except in a couple of states. But this will, of course, continue. I can't see any reason to believe. And also we have lots and other parts of the world. Most importantly for Evolution, of course, is the Asian market. I mean, everybody's talking about America, but America is 10%. I mean, Asia is many times bigger with Evolution, and 60%, I think, last quarter of the growth came from Asia, because Asia is so enormously big, of course, and there are some very, very big live casino companies in Asia today, but the product they have, the services they provide, so to speak, they are on such a very, very basic level. So I think we will have in Asia the move both from towards the online side of the business and also towards a more quality product like Evolution, because if you are a player there, you see that one or two companies have much more elegant product and much more innovative games and so on. I mean, chances are that you will want to play there, and that is also the reason that Evolution has been able to keep the distance to the competitors because their games are more fun, and it's a much smoother experience. It's a better experience, a high quality experience compared to their competitors. But then we also have other parts of the world. Europe, it's a very old, mature market, of course, but in lots and lots of countries, the big countries in south of Europe, the online side there is a very, very small still, so they will just continue to grow. Evolution won't catch all that, but they will catch a good share of it. And also you have, for example, South America that is regulating now, first in Argentina and now in Brazil and so on. Those are very big countries. There's lots of places to grow, and there is place for many suppliers in this field, and there will be for the next 10 years for sure. I can't see any reason to think anything like that. But we have to be realistic also. A company cannot grow by 50%, the revenue by 50% into infinity, because then it will be the biggest company by far in the world in a few years. You can't grow like that, and we have to be realistic. But evolution can.
Martin Carlson becomes the new Elon Musk
yes,
here.
Exactly.
I'll stand behind him for sure.
No, but if we are realistic, evolution can perhaps grow by 30% for year on year for the next 10 years. It wouldn't be surprising at all, and there aren't too many companies in the world which can grow very, very profitably by 30% per year. That's very rare. So I'm not worried about this at all. If they just continue to do what they do best, I'm sure they will succeed. But the share price will, of course, have a bumpy ride.
Yes,
I have no illusions there.
Oh, for sure. Just to give a bit perspective on the Asian market, and this is also a little bit speculation here, but the rumors within the industry is that Asia Gaming, which is the biggest live supplier in Asia, they are obviously not a publicly traded company for obvious reasons, but the rumor is that Asia Gaming produce 4 times more revenue than entire Evolution group, just to put some perspective. What is clear is that Asia Gaming is absolutely massive, right? And so to your point here is that the Asian market is obviously huge, and there's a lot of growth opportunity on that side. So I agree with you as well. That it seems to me that it's Asia which is the growth opportunity for Evolution. It seems that the North American market, when it comes to regulating online gambling, is at a little bit of a standstill at the moment. There aren't any of the bigger states that seems to be going live in the short term, at least.
You have a healthy growth
but anything can happen.
In the states that are regulated, you have a very healthy growth. So
yes.
If you just look on the total market, it's just growing and growing and growing in America now, and it goes for sports betting, of course, as well.
Absolutely, and I think the interesting thing is that investors and analysts are not expecting any major new states to open up in the near term, but anything can happen, right? So New York just a couple of years ago was considered a state that will never go live with online sports betting. The governor was very, very clear that under no circumstance will we allow online gambling or online sports betting in the state of New York. And as it turned out, the state was in desperate need of tax revenue, and they found their way to online sports betting, and the launch was extremely successful and has obviously generated an enormous amount of tax revenue for the state of New York. So
they had New Jersey just across the river there, so they could see how much money they were losing there, especially when they could see that people were just moving across the bridge and placing their weekend games, and then went back to New York, and they lost on all those money.
Yeah, exactly. There was this funny statistic that if you just cross the bridge over to New Jersey, there was this little area within a small town of New Jersey that generated more online gaming revenue than the entire state of Nevada. Just to put in context here. Yeah. The New Yorkers, they went over the bridge. So it made sense. But, there's the New York State senator who pushed the legislation of online sports betting through, Joseph P. Adabo. He has now taken it on himself to champion the opportunity to regulate online gambling as well in New York, and he has been very clear. He says that it's just a matter of time before online gambling is regulated. Now, the analysts, they don't really agree with that. They think he will have a lot of opposition. But then again, a couple of years ago, so did the analysts think about online sports betting. They never thought it would be regulated either. So the day there would be a story that's being published that a new major state goes live in the United States for online gambling, then obviously that can pave the way for other states to follow suit as well, and that perhaps could trigger the United States to become a potential massive growth market as well. We just don't know at this stage.
I think it's just a question of time. I mean, it will happen, but you don't know. I mean, we thought it would move quicker than what it did, but still, it. I mean, what if California regulates next year? I mean, that would be would double almost the market for. I mean, it's a strange market, of course, but I think that Evolution has been very, very clear. The management of Evolution have been very, very clear, saying that this will be our biggest market. We think one day. I mean, if you have America as a whole there, and then you shouldn't forget Canada there. I mean, lots
Ontario.
of regulation. I mean, happening in Canada, especially this week. Now we're talking about big territories there that have regulated. I mean, it's just like another American state coming in there. So I mean, we tend to always focus only on the United States, but I mean, Canada is very progressive when it comes to regulation now, and it's not the country isn't that small.
Yeah, exactly. No, there are a lot of opportunities out there. That's absolutely sure. Magnus, we've been talking well here about Evolution today, but if you were to try to make a bear case for Evolution, how would that bear case sound like?
Yeah, well, regulation, of course, can be a problem. I mean, I think that bad regulation in major markets is really a risk factor for any company that is in the iGaming space there, because we saw what happened in Germany. It was not at all a catastrophe for Evolution or anything like it. But if that gains traction, for example, in the European Union, that lots of politicians start talking about gaming as a bad vice that make people lose their money and so on. I mean, those kinds of things are really what we absolutely need to look closely at, and if that would happen, that would be bad for Evolution, really bad. And for example, then we talked about the United States. What if there was a big movement there, say, no, look at all those problem gaming, the problem with problematic gaming in the regulated states, and if for some reason then the other states that we were hoping for wouldn't regulate, that would also be a problem for. But now we're talking basically about growth prospects here, because I don't think anybody can make the case that we will have a global movement towards banning online casino, because I mean, now you're talking, I mean, the chances are like us getting hit by a meteorite or something like that. I mean, things that could happen perhaps, but very, very unlikely to happen.
Exactly.
Then you have the competitive landscape, of course. We have pragmatic
play.
Sorry?
Pragmatic play.
Play, yes. I thought it was pragmatic gaming, but pragmatic play, they're called. They have had success, but The bear case then would be that they get their act together even more, and they start, instead of just copying Evolution all the time, they start making very innovative games, and they get traction among the players, and they make more money, and then they become a serious competitor. And also that could happen with other companies also. I mean, there are lots and lots of, I mean, when you go to ICE, you can see like 20 different live casino, lots of companies you've never heard about. But what if there is a limit to the innovation? And you could also argue, of course, that it's been a while now since Evolution had a real smash hit, like Crazy Time, which is the biggest one, or Mega Ball was also a hit of 2020. And you can make the case that they didn't spend as much, of course, on innovation in 2021. They had other focuses, but if that continues, so they don't get any more real smash hits and so on, that could also be a problem for the long-term growth. On the other hand, you could always say that this isn't Disney or some movie studio. You don't have just a few months to make money there, because even the few games that Evolution has had that have been a bit, I mean, like flops, very, very few, but they're still there. They're still making money for the company, because there are, I mean, you could have hoped there are 1,000 people playing every day, all the time, but instead you have like 80 people playing. I mean, still you make money, and you just continue to make money, and it's a fantastic business when it comes to that. I mean, all the things that they make are still there, and producing revenue for the company. But I mean, the reason they are so far ahead of the competition, and we should note here, because I don't think everybody knows this. I mean, we talk about competition here. You don't have like Evolution, the biggest of four companies that have around 20% or something like that of the market. I mean, Evolution is several times larger when it comes to, especially the live. I come back to Evolution being mainly, of course, a live casino company. I mean, they are several times larger than their closest competitors. I mean, it's almost a factor of 10 when you look at this. I mean, Evolution has now more than 1,000 tables, and we're talking about 100, 150, perhaps 200 tables for other companies. And also they have lots of games, which, I mean, if you take the top 20 games, I think like 17 of them are from Evolution when it comes to like casino, something like that. I haven't seen any numbers recently, but something like that it is. So, I mean, you have an enormous domination of the global. I mean, Evolution is so much bigger. And I think it's only naive, if I don't move completely away from the bear case to a more bullish case, I think it's very, very naive to think that if other companies would just continue to get closer and closer to Evolution, when Evolution has so much more money to invest in innovation and growth. I mean, Evolution is almost building a new studio every quarter. I mean, building a studio for a smaller company, it's a big undertaking. It was like Evolution in 2017 when they went into Georgia. It was a big undertaking. It was a huge thing, and the market was disappointed for a while because it cost so much, and they had to hire lots and lots of people before they had any revenue from them and so on. But now Evolution is just all the time. I mean, I can't really keep track of now. Now it's a new studio in Madrid. Now it's a new studio in some strange Eastern country that you haven't really heard about, or East European country. I mean, and also we have the more expensive growth, of course, in the United States, where they are still close to having a monopoly. They were a monopoly, but they had a little bit of competition now on the live side in the United States. But they are, I mean, surely they have 95% of the market in this.
Yeah, and not only that, but they have. They have also exclusivity agreements with some of the major operators. So even if some live competitors wants to enter the market in the United States, the pool of operators that they can choose from to partner with is quite small.
Oh yes, it's very difficult, and also it's very expensive. It's so heavily regulated and so on. So I mean, I think getting even close to evolution in the United States, I think, and also in Canada, I think will be extremely difficult or even impossible for their competitors now that evolution had such a head start that they've had, and it's so expensive to grow there compared to Europe and other places.
Yeah, that really is the story of evolution. The fact that it's so difficult to compete against them. We mentioned here, of course, United States. The fact that evolution already has secured exclusivity agreements with some of the major operators, and there's been this story that the operators in the United States, they want to control their own tech. They want to control vertically the tech, and one worry has been that some of the major operators will launch their own live studios. But the problem is that it's just so difficult. And so to the point where only Evolution so far has been able to even be successful launching in the United States. And we have obviously Playtech a couple of months ago launching in their first state, but after quite big delays. And again, the market is quite limited in the amount of operators that are now available. So it's not exactly a wish of the operators to start their own live casino and to start that venture, which is going to.
No one would do. I mean, I don't think they could be so stupid to do this without looking at what some operators have already done for many years in Europe, because. I mean, for example, as we're both Swedish here, we have Leo Vegas. They started their own live authentic gaming there, and that was later sold to Genting. But I mean, they had to show some of the numbers there. I mean, there wasn't anything to show for there, and they had put, of course, lots and lots of money into this, and it went nowhere. And there are other companies as well who have started their own or tried to start their own live studios. And they haven't really had any success. And you should also, of course, consider the fact that it's not like we had this discussion around Cambio, of course, and their services to the sport books. I mean, it's a completely different thing when it comes to live gaming, because if you are an operator in America or anywhere else and you started your own live studio, you would be even more stupid if you also shut out Evolution and try to have, now everybody's going to play on our nice roulette table that we just launched or something like that. I mean, then you wouldn't be competitive. I mean,
yes,
it would be just like in Europe when someone has started their own studio. They are, well, Evolution, I guess, just said, well, good luck, but you're still our customer here. So, and then they will just see that people will be playing with not only with Evolution, but they would be still playing Evolution games. And I think this is also something that many investors don't really realize. They think that, Evolution, of course, is more expensive to have as a supplier because they are the best and they are the most popular. And it's very, very important. It's imperative if you want to understand this business, that it is the players who decide who's going to be successful here. Because if you have 10 times, if you're an operator, you have 10 times as many players playing Evolution's games than any of their competitors. Even if Evolution charges you 50, I don't know at all, but if they would charge you 50% more, still, if you have 10 times as much revenue from Evolution, you will make much, much, much more money as compared to the 10% that are playing at a discount. I mean, that is, the reason that Evolution has been outgrowing the market for so many years. People have been choosing their products, and I think also, when you think about how expensive it is to have dedicated studios or start dedicated studios, I also don't know the numbers here, but everybody says it's very, very expensive to start these own operators tables and so on. Why would you do that if you wanted to start your own? I mean, then you would put your money into this business or live business that you want to start. Why would you put millions or whatever into dedicated evolution tables? But I mean, it makes no sense. I mean, it's a huge investment that operators around the world do, especially in blackjack tables, but also in other tables, and now also in different game shows. I mean, Evolution has now many different game shows with branded game shows. I mean, I can only assume that those are very, very heavy investments for any operator to start. I mean, yeah, then really, why would you ever think about leaving Evolution? It makes no sense, really. Even if you get the 50% discount with someone else, I mean, why would you?
Yeah, exactly.
Since you don't,
famous last words.
You pay a percentage of your winnings. I mean, as long as you pay a percentage of your winnings. I mean, otherwise, if you had to pay much more than you got in, that would be a bad business. But no one would make any money if that was the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Famous last words, as you say. It seems like they are unbeatable, and then something completely unexpected happens. But it's true.
Yeah.
You can never know exactly. Something from left field comes, but that's what's interesting with this discussion, because Evolution is in such a unique position that it is not clear how another challenger would outperform or outcompete Evolution in the live segment, considering all these factors in all these states. But something else that's interesting as well, you mentioned pragmatic play here, which has been become a bit of a needle in the eye for Evolution in the last 1 or 2 years. Obviously, Pragmatic is not the public company, so we don't know the numbers for sure. But what is clear is that they are showing significant growth within the organizations. And the RNG segment of Pragmatic is doing very well. They have done a lot of things right. Something that was quite interesting was a news story just the other week, which is essentially that Pragmatic now announced that they will be launching a sportsbook. And if you remember last year as well, there were some rumors that perhaps the next acquisition of Evolution would be someone like Kambi, for example, or they would enter that vertical, the sports betting vertical. Now, the argument against that is that a product like Kambi is not as profitable, and it would kind of pull down the EBITDA margins quite significantly if Evolution would enter that vertical. And in addition to that is that Evolution has not proven themselves on the RNG vertical yet. No. And entering a sports betting vertical is totally different from obviously operating a live casino. It's like two different industries, more or less. And so it isn't exactly clear why Evolution would be successful in kind of fine-tuning a product like Kambi Sportsbook. But my question is to you, Magnus, like, as we move forward now into 2022 and 2023, what do you think Evolution's M&A strategy will be? Do you think they will try to kind of become this 360-degree one-stop shop with all verticals, supplying all operators with various services, or do you think they will focus on the core? What's your thoughts here?
I think they will be. I mean, this is of course only speculation, but knowing the company now, I think they will concentrate on what they do best, which is, casino, basically, in different forms. I mean, it's easy to understand why they wanted to get part of the slots business there. As I said, to have a one-stop shop, but. As you say, I mean, sports betting is something quite different. I think a lot of the reason that it's been talked about Kambi is that it is a Swedish company which is very, very successful, and of course having that, they would be really this one-stop shop. But I can't really see that they would want to go into something that is so different compared to what they would have to trust the people in the company, if it's Kambi or something else. They would have to trust them very, very much when they say we should do this and we should do that, because they don't have the knowledge about, since it is so different to gamble on for example, a football game as compared to running a casino, which is basically what Evolution is doing around the world now, running lots and lots of casinos. And I would be a bit disappointed if they did this, because they will need to basically continue to invest in innovation and growth and buy new. Hopefully they will not have to build that as many studios in the future here, because the studios are bigger and bigger. But in America, they will have to do that if the new states regulate. So I think they should concentrate on this, and I think it was very promising. And this was also just a fuzzy feeling there when I looked at the first group of new games that they presented about a month ago. I was happy to see some of those things, because I think they are back in the 2020 form that they had producing games. And I think some of them will be very good. And the players will also, we have to be realistic about this. The players, they have been dazzled by, I don't know if it's like 3 years now since, for example, Lightning Roulette came, which is a huge success. And it's not only a success in number of players, but it's also very, very lucrative game, because as compared to, for example, lots of the other game shows, they are really a gateway into playing the three big games, which are, of course, blackjack, roulette, and baccarat. And that is where Evolution makes most of their money. And as a game show, Lightning Roulette has been a huge success, but it's also something that, now they have this new extreme Lightning Roulette instead, but the players will just demand more and more. Just like if you look at the video game players, what they had like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, they look very, very basic when you compare to what's come out in the last 2 or 3 years, of course. And I think that they will just continue to have to continue to pour money into this and make the games more and more spectacular, and perhaps buy IPs that are quite expensive and so on. So I think they would do right, as far as from my horizon here. Just outside of the company in every way. I think it would be better for them to concentrate on this, because there is so much possibility, as I said, to grow within this market. And perhaps they can someday buy some competitor within live casino instead. I think that would be a much wiser use of their cash as compared to just repurchase shares or, give out dividends.
Yeah, there is. And another interesting aspect, I think, Magnus, is that yes, you can acquire your way to new revenue or into a new vertical by acquiring Kambi, for example. But you can also, in the unique position that Evolution is with their enormous resources, both in terms of tech infrastructure, manpower, and cash, they could also invent their own verticals. And this is what they did with the game show vertical, of course. Evolution invented the game show vertical, which is now, if you would carve out that vertical, it would probably be about, crazy time. If it was a company, it would be worth like 6 billion euro or something. It's a massive vertical for Evolution that they carved out, and they can continue to investigate and research, potentially inventing new types of gameplay. And just to play with a fun example here, okay? We are Swedish, Magnus, and we are raced with Bingo Lotto. and I've always been joking that what if Evolution would do extreme Bingo Lotto and they would create a TV show? Can you imagine with Ted Haushalter and the innovative spirit and the creativity and the resources, what they could do if they would launch a TV show? I'm not saying that they're doing it, but it just imagine that, and that would pull in a new demographic of players who would then potentially play the other games as well. And so the point is, there's so much innovation to be done in the space that they don't have to acquire themselves into new verticals when they are the only player who has the resources and opportunity to innovate in the space.
Absolutely, and that will cost lots of money. So I think they should concentrate on that part.
Yeah, absolutely. And Magnus, we're gonna start rounding off here a little bit, but as a final question, I suppose, we talk a lot of evolution now within the iGaming industry, and I would like to hear your thoughts, just what you think of other publicly traded company within the iGaming industry. Are you a believer in the industry at large?
Yes.
Is there other companies you're invested in?
No, I used to be invested in Leo Vegas and Catena Media mostly, a couple of other companies as well. But I mean, there are lots of good companies, I would say. But my investing style has, when you have been an investor for a long time, there's some things that you have done well, and some other things that you haven't done so well. And what's worked for me doesn't have to work for everybody else, but has been to focus on your favorite within one sector. For example, I'm very much also into what's a good English term for it, but strong brands, of course.
Yes.
I like that very, very much. For example, Evolution is a strong brand, but it's in a niche business. Strong brands when it comes to drinks and clothes and bags and whatnot. And there, for example, I decided several years ago that I would only go with LVMH, which is the biggest luxury company in the world. So I only focused on that one because I correctly turned out thought they would be also in the future the best company. So I haven't put a lot of time into other companies in the last couple of years in the iGaming business, because I think that Evolution stands out in every way. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Perhaps there is some company growing quicker, but they stand. If you have a total score, if you make some kind of total score with 8 different parameters or something like that, I think they will, as a total, they will win. And we can never know about the future, but I think that is a reason why I don't want to. Catena Media now, for example, they have, I guess, lots of success in America as well. Finally, it took its time there, and there are other companies. But for example, I used to own Kambi back in the day, and they are a very, very good company. But still, I think Evolution is better because they have less competition. Of course, lots of it's a completely different situation than what Kambi has, and I think it's they are also not subject to these issues with the favorites winning, for example, in the World Cup. If it's just Brazil wins everything, Germany wins everything, Kambi can lose money. If you're in a casino, you're not going to lose any money. Over time, you will just if people keep coming to your casino, you will just continue making money, and it's in that way it's more or less the best business you can be in. It's like as long as you can have this casino running, it's like a money printing machine, especially when you do it online and you don't have a lot of those costs that is otherwise in a casino. So I wish I could speak for 2 or 3 other companies as much as I speak for Evolution, but that's just my investment style, and I want to have the leader of in each sector, and so far it has paid off very, very handsomely in Evolution, and we'll have to see. Really, I mean, I can't say where the stock is in 3 months' time now, but I would be surprised if it is valued like this. I mean, we're talking now; it has appreciated the last 2 days now quite a bit, but still it's
Yes.
I think just for this year it's just north of PE of 20, perhaps 22 or something like that, if the analysts are correct. So I mean, that is of course crazy if you grow by 50% this year or 40%. I mean, it doesn't make really any sense if you have 70% EBITDA margin as they have guided for this year, or 69 to 71, I think. I think that doesn't make any sense. And so I think I'm not worried. First of all, I'm not worried that we will have another big drop or something like that. I mean, that can happen. I'm not worried about that. But also, I think it's more likely or not that they will appreciate at least as much as the company grows its profits. And otherwise, it would just be cheaper and cheaper on an earnings basis. That doesn't really make any sense. You can't really have a company. I mean, we have these stalwarts of Swedish industry are trading at higher multiples today than Evolution does. I mean, they have like 30 P30 or 35 or something like that, and they just grow with perhaps 5 or 10% per year, and that can't continue for. And I mean, it's a terrible situation now with wars and lots of other issues in the world and challenges. But I think
that's kind of my final question here, which is like, are you worried about the macroeconomic climate playing a part in the pullback and drawback to these growth stocks with rampant inflation, the war happening, potential other conflicts, and is that something that worries you?
It can sound cynical, of course, when you say that the horrible war here doesn't affect the company, but I mean the effect. I mean, as Evolution has said, it's not material at all on the company. I mean, they don't have any business in Russia, and they have a small outfit in Kiev, but basically it's no effect whatsoever. Then also you have the chances of recession, of course, taking hold. You have all those things, but it can also sound a bit cynical that you say, but I mean, gambling is pretty recession proof because people tend to gamble, even if, I mean, we have the bad part, of course, with people having gambling problems, but we also have the perhaps 97% who just have it as a innocent little thing they do. I mean, they know that they will very likely not get rich gambling, but it's fun and it's exciting and so on. So I mean, when we had the COVID situation, and I thought that the market wouldn't slash the share price of Evolution because it was so obvious that it's also a very cynical thing to say, but I mean, it was so obvious that they would grow in this situation where people couldn't go out and have a beer and so on. So people stayed inside and gambled. I mean, to me that was a big surprise that it went down to, I don't remember now, but 270 or something like that. But it made really no sense because they were a net winner on this terrible situation that happened. And I like that very much. And that's also the reason why I like strong brands so much, because if you have a company like, or a part of LVMH like Louis Vuitton, I mean, they've been around since the 1840s. There have been revolutions and wars and 2 world wars and everything. But the company is still there and it's thriving because it's such a strong brand. And when if you have a domination, or perhaps they won't be as dominant, but they will be for sure for the next like 10 years or something like that, they will be a major player in online casino. I mean, that's I can't see any way around that. And as long as they are that, they will make lots and lots of money for its shareholders. So I'm not worried too much if interest rates go up by 200 points or something like that. I mean, it's I don't mean that they are not influenced whatsoever, or that the business, iGaming business, isn't influenced at all by things that happen in the world. Of course they are, but it's very, very little as compared to things like, like the car industry or whatever. If you have a big recession, people don't buy. I mean, I can keep this car a couple of years more now. If you lose your job, you don't buy a new car. But if you lose your job, unfortunately, you will continue using the iGaming services. I mean, that's the way we are. It's like saying that, we have a recession, people will not drink beer. Of course, they will drink beer. I mean, that's if you have a very strong beer brand, you will still make money in a recession. You will have if you have some very, very expensive thing that you sell, you're in trouble. Of course, if you have wars and recessions and bad things happening.
Yeah. It's a friend of mine, Robin Reed, who said that investors are looking for, in uncertain times, they look for investments that are recession proof. But since the pandemic started, they're also looking for industries that are pandemic proof. And the iGaming industry is both. And so he made the argument that our industry is a safe investment.
They have to adapt, of course, when it comes to the studios and closings and everything. But now, at least for Evolution, they are pretty. I don't even want to think about another COVID situation here. I'm so tired of.
No, exactly. We'll keep that for another day, Magnus.
Absolutely.
It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here today. I can see that it's getting a little bit dark outside the windows here in Malta. It's pitch black, and I'm getting ready to take my dog out. Magnus, thank you so much for coming on board today.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to have you on here. And absolutely.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a nice rest of the day.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.